Hey guys, today we're going into 3.1, which is the beginning of the next unit, which is a graphing unit. So first we're going to go over the basics of graphing. We're going to start with this warm-up down here. And we are going to label the points A, B, C, D, and just label where they are according to their point on the coordinate plane. So first this A point, first we label it, and it's our points are always x comma y. So my A is 2 spaces to the left on the x-axis, so that's -2 or -2. And then from there we go down 3 spaces, so that's a -3. The B point is right on the origin or the center of this coordinate plane, so it's going to be labeled 0, 0. C point, so I start at the origin. My x-axis, I'm not going left or right, so that's 0, but I am going up 3 spaces, so that would be for my y value. And last but not least, point D, I went to the right 3 spaces, so that's a +3. And from there I went up 2 spaces, so that's a +2. So all these points, just a little refresher, is where we go left or right first. That's our x-axis, and then we go up or down, depending on where the point is on the y-axis. So let's try labeling these together. Point A, what do you think it's going to be? -1, 3 was correct. Point B, I moved 3 spaces over on the x-axis and none on the y. Point C, now it's the opposite. I'm not moving on the x-axis, but now I'm moving down 3 spaces, so it's a -3. And last but not least, point D, which I move 4 spaces on my x-axis and 1 on my y. All right, now these will be all by yourself, no guidance. Label point A, B, C, and D. All right, take a second to just pause this screen and write down our new vocab. The y-intercept is a point on the y-axis, and it's always going to be 0, comma, the number that it's going through. For example, if I pick 4, it goes through my y-axis. It's always going to be 0, comma, that number. The x-intercept goes through the x-axis. So if I pick a point along the x-axis, let's just say -3, it will always be -3, comma, 0. It'll always have that 0 in it after our number. The origin is the center of the graph. It will always be 0, comma, 0. The domain and range, that's from chapter 1, but just a refresher, the domain is the distance that the line is covering along the x-axis. That's why it's highlighted yellow. And the range is the y-axis, the distance that the line is going to be covering on the along the green highlighted area. And another new term we're probably going to see in questions is the word function. Function is the line. That's what it's talking about. When it says graph the function, it just means graph the line. It's just another word for line. And with lines, we have negative lines, we have positive, our horizontal ones are called 0, And our ones that go up and down are called undefined. I don't even think I can fit it in the screen, undefined. Hopefully I spelt it right. But UND is undefined abbreviated. All right, let's look at a problem and see what it's going to ask. We're going to be taking some type of function and graphing it on the line. Just like we did in chapter 1, we're going to be making that table. It says graph the function y equals 2x minus 1. So here's that word function again, which means line. So there's going to be a line that has this equation, y equals 2x minus 1, with domain. What does domain mean? Our x values. Bringing back a little chapter 1 in here. -2, -1, 0, 1. And there's D got cut off here. And then identify the range of the function. Actually, there we go. There's supposed to be another number in there. I thought something got cut off. All right, the first thing we want to do before we graph this function is use the domains they gave us and make a table, just like we did in chapter 1. So I need my input and my output, also known as my x's and my y's. And the domains or the x values that they gave us are -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. My y is what I get right here after I plugged in my domains. So I'm going to replace, wherever I see an x, I'm going to replace all these numbers one at a time into it in order to get a y value. So my function is 2 times, now I'm going to replace it with -2, minus 1. So 2 times -2 is -4, minus 1 is -5. I'm going to keep doing this process, repeating it. 2 times -1 is -2, minus 1 is -3. 2 times 0 is 0, minus 1 is -1. 2 times 1 is 2, minus 1 is 1. And last but not least, 2 times 2 is 4, minus 1 is 3. So I have these points. I plugged in -2, my output was -5. I plugged in -1, my output was -3. I plugged in 0, my output was -1. I plugged in 1, my output was 1. And last but not least, I plugged in 2, and my output was 3. So now I'm going to take these points, and I'm going to plot them on this graph. So the first one in red, -2, -5, I go over to the left 2 spaces, down 5 spaces. I'm just going to label it so we can see it. My next point, -1, -3, I go over to the left 1 space, down 3 spaces. Zero, -1, I don't move left or right, but I do move down 1 space because that is my y-intercept. It's intercepting, or it's crossing the y-axis. My next point, 1, 1, now it's positive, so I go to the right 1, up 1. And my last point, 2, 3, again, both positive, so I go right 2, up 3. So if I connect all these points, I am making a function or a line. All right, let's move on from here. Graph the function with the given domain, then identify the range of the function. Oh, wait a second. That question also said identify the range of the function. I missed it. All right, so the range of the function is all the y values. So if this line continues, it's going to go from all the way negative infinity all the way to positive infinity because it covers this entire y-axis. But the ranges that we particularly found are all these values. So I would just have to label the range as -5, -3, -1, 1, and 3. So don't be like Miss Weir and accidentally skip over part of the directions. All right, last one, the last two that we're going to be doing together. So first, I'm going to have to make a table. I have my x values that they gave us. I'm plugging it into y equals -x plus 1. I'm going to get a point, x comma y. So the domains they gave us are the same as last time. So I'm going to start replacing here. Y equals negative. Don't forget your negative sign in front of that x. And now I'm substituting -2 in for the x plus 1. So when I plugged in -2, what do I get as an outcome? Well, negative and a negative makes a positive, so I have 2 plus 1, which is 3. My pen stopped working. All right, there we go. So now I'm going to replace x with -1. What should I get as an output? Well, when I substituted -1 in, a negative and a negative makes it positive. 1 plus 1 is 2. I replace it with 0. So when I substitute 0, what's my outcome? 1. When I substitute 1 in, what is my outcome? Well, now this negative goes to the positive 1, so it's -1 plus 1, which is 0. And last but not least, when I substitute a 2 in, I get a -1. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to graph all these points in red. That's why there's this little red box next to it. So I have -2, 3, so over 2 spaces to the left, and a +3, so I go up 3 spaces. -1, 2, go left 1 space, up 2 spaces. 0, 1. What else is this point called? The y-intercept. Then I have 1, 0. What is this point also called? The x-intercept, because it's crossing the x-axis. And then 2, -1. Right 2 spaces, down 1 space. So I have this red function going through the coordinate plane. Is this a positive, negative, 0, or undefined slope? It is a negative slope. Congratulations if you got that correct. For the red function, number 24, that we just did, what are all the ranges? So remember, all the ranges are all just listing all of our outputs. So 3, 2, 1, 0, and -1 are all of our ranges. All right, so I made my table for the next function. I'm going to start replacing. Y equals 2 times -2 minus 5. What'd you get? You get negative 4 minus 5, which is negative 9. Second function. 2 times negative 1 minus 5. What do you get as an outcome? 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Minus 5 is negative 7. When you substitute 0 in, what do you get as an outcome? Negative 5. When I substitute 1 in, what do I get as an outcome? Negative 3. And last but not least, when I substitute 2 in, what do I get as an outcome? I get negative 1. What are all of our ranges? They are all my outputs, because range and output means the same exact thing. And now I'm going to graph all these. We'll call this the teal line. Negative 2 comma negative 9, I cannot fit on this graph. It's going to be somewhere down here. Then I have negative 1 comma negative 7. Again, doesn't fit on my graph. It's going to be somewhere down there. 0, negative 5, which is also my y-intercept. 1 comma negative 3. And then 2 comma negative 1. Not gonna lie, that was those points off the graph are pretty accurate. Pretty straight here. All right, what kind of slope is that teal line? It is a positive slope. And these two lines intersect at the point. What point is that? That is 2 comma negative 1. And that is where they intersect.